Hello and welcome to Two Crime Writers and a Microphone. We're your hosts Luca Veste
and I'm Steve Cavanagh,
and we're here to present a brand new podcast which will bring you the latest news in the book world, interviews with writers, agents, publicists, editors, you name them, we'll have them. Also, each week we'll hear from some of the best book reviewers around who will give us a reads of the week. So Steve, how are you this week?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Not too bad, not too bad. Hit page 100 in the new Murphy and Rossi novel, so I'm feeling good.
Oh, that's good.
It's about 150 where you start worrying, isn't it? It's like the 35,000 mark that I start worrying.
I start worrying long before that. As soon as I get past page 70, that's when I start to worry. Yeah. Because then I've got the start, but I think, oh God, then there's so much more to go. And you're thinking, that's normally the bit where I start panicking.
See, I've got my desk set up so I can see like previous books on my shelf. So I can periodically look across and think, you've done this 4 times before, you should be all right. But it still doesn't make any difference, is that?
No, it doesn't make any difference at all.
You can kind of just go, that's just a ridiculous amount of work that's gone into them, and I don't know if I can do it again. But every time, somehow, it comes out. But yeah, so this is the first chance we've got to talk about the music which was introed us in. So should we announce who has actually done the music?
Yes, we should. We should have a drum roll of some kind. If we get a drum,
can we get him to do a drum roll for us?
Yeah, we should get him to do a drum roll for us. We should do a whole lot of sound effects as well.
We could get him in with like a board, and just say, okay, now hit that button. Just lightning. We need lightning. No, so the provider of the music for this podcast is the one and only Stuart Neville.
Stuart Neville, good friend of the show.
He is a very good friend of the show. He's a very good friend of ours now as well, because he's done this for us for, at a ridiculous speed, and with a ridiculously talented guy he is as well.
And he's not getting paid.
And he's not getting paid either. Well, I don't know if he knows that yet. This might
be the first time he knows that.
This might be the time he realises that he's not getting paid, which would be a terrible thing for him to find out.
Maybe we don't know. We're just going to get this huge invoice emailed through.
Can you imagine?
$3,000 for a studio. Studio rental.
I bought a guitar for $15,000 that was once looked at by Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a brand new original piece of work that Stuart has created for us, and I couldn't thank him enough for it. I think it's an amazing thing for us to have.
No, it's brilliant. I love it.
Although I'm really, really annoyed how talented he is. It's like, it's not fair. You say, I think in life you should have one thing that you're good at, and then that's it. It's like, it's not fair otherwise. So, like the idea that he can, write the amazing books that he writes, and then he can play. The thing was that Bloody Scotland, the Crime Festival Bloody Scotland, where he was like playing the harmonica with Michael Weston King from My Dog.
Oh yeah.
Time, and it was ridiculous. And then he was at Bauschicon doing playing guitar at Bauschicon, and he was just incredible. And it's just there is a limit to my acceptance of talent. I think that's what I've discovered.
But you can play the guitar, and you were up singing in Bloody Scotland. What did you sing again? You sang an old Scottish folk classic.
I sang a beautiful folk ballad called, which was it was terribly snatched from the Scottish in around the year 1999, 2000, I think it was, by a US pop star called Britney Spears, and it was "Baby One More Time." But I brought it back to Scotland, and I did it, I mean, I wasn't the first one to bring it back to Scotland, because Travis did it like 15 years ago, but for the purposes of that night, I was the one bringing it back. But yeah, so I can play chords, and about 20 years ago, I could actually play a lot better than I can now, but my fingers got really fat along with the rest of me, and it just it's not gone well from there. But I don't really do anything with it now. But it's obvious Stewart still plays, which is it's just ridiculous.
It's amazing. I love the music. It's sort of like a wee bit like The Shadows and a wee bit Tarantino-esque.
Yeah, like a
as well.
It's got a Pulp Fiction vibe to it. I think it's. I love it. It's. But I do want to just say to him just one thing. Just pick one thing. You're allowed to be good at one thing, and then make the rest of us feel good about ourselves for at least 5 minutes, because it's not fair.
No, it's not. It's not. But at the same time, it's good that he can do it because let's face it, the music is the best thing about the show.
Yeah,
really,
I mean,
it is so far.
The music comes in, and then it all just goes downhill from there. And I think that's I don't think we should use that as a slogan, but it should be just put out there straight from the beginning. It's like the music was the best bit.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than this, folks.
We're going to go straight into news, and I think we're going to start with this week, which with perhaps the most contentious news the publishing world has seen in the past few minutes or months. That is, Bob Dylan has won the 2016 Nobel Prize in Literature. He was given the prize for outstanding contributions in the field of literature, with the permanent secretary for Nobel saying the award was for having created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. What do you think about that?
Oh, well, you see, I like Dylan. Okay, I mean, when I was, growing up, and I was a long-haired, believe it or not, teenager, I got really into Dylan. But this is not right. I mean, because he's a musician, he's a singer, songwriter. He's a fabulously talented musician, and does he write fantastic lyrics? Yes, he does. But he's doing a different thing. I mean, if it's fair that he gets the Nobel Prize for Literature, well, how come Seamus Heaney didn't win any Grammy Awards? It's. I mean, I'd taken it slightly highbrow, but I had to bring it down to my level. It's like they have, every year they have the construction industry awards. And it would be like an electrician winning an award for plumber of the year. An electrician is a brilliantly skilled individual, and so is a plumber. But it's a different fucking thing. So,
playing devil's advocate though is the idea of literature though? Does it cross boundaries? I mean, is it any written word become literature? I must confess, I missed the Dylan boat mainly because I was born in the 1980s, and I was, my dad brought me up with Pink Floyd rather than Bob Dylan.
You were brought up in the same house as Pink Floyd?
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of arguments. But it was
that tour bus parked in the garden all day.
Yeah, it was a pig that should have floated around, and it was. So I kind of I've never really listened to Dylan, but I know his cultural impact on the world, obviously, because you speak to other writers and they mostly, especially a certain generation of them, talk about Dylan as like a god, but it is kind of like, does the written word kind of transcend music into literature sometimes? Can that happen?
Well, I think it can, and the chairman of the Nobel Committee sort of said this thing. It was like, it goes back to the oral storytelling tradition, like Homer's the Odyssey or the Iliad, where that would have been spoken aloud, and perhaps there would have been musicians to accompany him and stuff like this. And yeah, I think that's someone trying to wildly justify this sort of a decision. And I think the decision itself was announced late, which some people were reading into that. I wasn't, and not everyone was singing off the same hymn sheet type of thing. And the thing is, there were other writers who were up for it. There were Salman Rushdie, and I think Don DeLillo was quite heavily fancied for it. But they would occasionally give it to poets. And I sort of think prizes like that, you should give them to poets, because let's face it, if you're a poet, unless you're winning prizes left, right, and centre, you're not probably going to be able to make much of a living from your poetry. Like, I know when Seamus Heaney won it, the typical Irish media went, "Oh, you won the Nobel Prize for literature. That's great. What are you going to do with €1,000,000 that you've won?" Because you get €1,000,000 with that prize. Well, you certainly used to. And that, I think, should probably go to a lesser-known writer and help them out a bit. And I don't think Dylan has actually accepted it yet.
Well,
there's like an award ceremony. But he hasn't said he's going.
No, which was brilliant because he's literally got a bit on his website which lists his tour dates. So it's like, just show up. It was like, 15th of October, he's in like Anaheim, and it's like, well, just go there. He's there. He's not missing. He's just sitting there going, no, I'll pick that up at some point.
He stands out. He still wears that big hat, doesn't he? You're not gonna. He's not inconspicuous.
No, I think he's perfected his look. That means that he's not going to disappear into a crowd anytime soon. But I think it's. I mean, my thinking is always that it wasn't like anyone that I know was ever going to win it, so I don't really care about it. It's one of those where it's like, unless it's someone I like, I don't tend to take notice. I'm very cavalier in that way, where it's like, I'm not really too fussed about prizes unless I'm either winning them, which has not happened, and it's not going to probably happen anytime soon, or it's one of my friends that are up for the awards, and I'm like really invested then. If someone I know is up for an award, then I'm really invested. That's when I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. But especially with the Nobel Prizes, I mean, the idea that my favourite this year was was it the Nobel Peace Prize one? Was the guy they almost got a peace deal? Was it Colombia or somewhere? It was. Yeah,
it was in Colombia. Well, he got. I think he negotiated a deal which he thought was great, and everyone else thought was great, apart from everybody in Colombia.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Is that did he win that prize? Did he win the prize? Did they won? The prize?
He did win the prize.
I mean, so he's won a prize basically for nothing because it didn't actually happen. It's like it wasn't. So I don't really tend to kind of. They gave Obama the Peace Prize. Now I'm a massive Obama fan, but this was like a year into his presidency and he hadn't really done anything yet. And it was.
I remember that, yeah.
So I'm kind of like, the Nobel Prize committee. I'm like, leave it to the science ones. Always good. They've always done really good work. The literature ones, I don't really recall any other past winners.
I don't think it boosts book sales massively either.
I don't. It's not
really.
It's not
I think
you see on the top of a novel. It's like CWA Dagger Award winner and Nobel Prize.
Right.
I don't think we've seen that anytime soon.
No.
But it's like, So I'm not massive. It wasn't like anyone I know was going to win it anyway. So I don't tend to move in the circles of the people who are on the shortlist. I move in the same kind of circles that you do, and that's why we're sat here and not in Anaheim hiding from the Nobel Prize committee, so we don't have to accept the prize. Next, we have a new report that has appeared in the Guardian newspaper. It's along with a lot of other sources are talking about this week, which says average earnings for authors in the UK are around £12,500. This is a report from the European Commission, which they say shows how unequal the publishing business still is, with equal distribution of wealth still a long way off. £12,500, which is, I think, the latest amount from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation for a livable wage is about £6,000 a year more than that.
Right.
I mean, has it ever been the case that writing was ever considered to be, generally a good way to earn a living?
See, I don't know if it ever was. You think about some of the literary greats. A lot of them, like Kafka, never made any money from his writing at all, not a bean. Lots of other writers were in the same. Dickens, I think, got the idea. He was doing serials and stuff, and he made a bit of dough. But I don't know. I don't think you become. There's there's a point I'm coming to here. There was a really good interview I heard. James Lee Burke was on it, and he was talking about his career. And James Lee Burke, legend. John Connolly says a brilliant thing about James Lee Burke. He says, God help us. Eventually, when James Lee Burke passes away, every other crime writer will move up one place. And I think that's lovely, because he sort of reveres him, and lots of other people do too, and he is a genius. But he went 13 years where he couldn't get a book published. And eventually then he was saying, look, you don't do this for money. He has made money. There's been times where he hasn't made any money. And he has said, look, no one would do something this hard for money. You do it because you want to do it. And I think that's where it is. Is it inequality, or I don't know if it is or not. I know publishers do well, but are they really doing that well anymore? Maybe self-publishing is the way to go.
And the idea that, just self-publish is, you are leaving a lot on the table at that point.
You are, all big time.
And it is a bit of a shot in the dark. Some people make vast amounts of money doing it, and I think that's brilliant. But for some people, it's not. What I don't want to kind of portray though is that it's any kind of hobby, because it is work and it is a job.
Oh God, yeah.
And it is sadly a lot of people who have to also do another job on top of that job. So they are working two jobs because they're not getting the same amount of money. I would love it if some things changed within publishing monetary wise, in that the creators of the content were rewarded better, mainly because I'd like more things.
Well, yeah, yeah. I got a lot of shit to buy.
I've got lots of stuff. I've got a wish list on Amazon that's really long. But it's it's always a difficult one. It's not just a publishing issue. It's a workplace issue. The people who are doing work always get the least pay. It's the ones who are working the hardest usually get paid the least. It's just that's how capitalism works and always has.
I know what you mean, but I think that this is in terms of, it's all a shot in the dark in self-publishing, or going through a publishing house, independent or a big five. It's all a bit of a shot in the dark. But I wonder about that survey as well, because that presumably covers fiction and non-fiction and all genres, and there could be, I often wonder about statistics. Actually, I tell you, there's a guy called, I think his name's Vin Scully. He was I'm going off on a bad tangent here. I do this occasionally, bear with me. I will come back. There's a guy called Vin Scully, and Michael Connolly's latest book is dedicated to him, right? So I'd seen this dedication, I thought, who's that guy? And I looked it up, and he was the announcer for the Dodgers baseball team. When they were the Brooklyn Dodgers, like he's been an announcer for years. And I looked him up, and he has a brilliant quote about statistics. And I'm going to try and see if I can get it right. He says, another way in baseball, people are obsessed with statistics and people can quote them, a bit like football. Yeah. He said, statistics should be used as a drunk uses a lamppost. They are for support, not illumination. I love this guy, Vin Scully. So if you're looking at that sort of a survey about earnings, there could be, a couple of hundred guys who are writing non-fiction books about ducks that nobody buys, and they're earning like 20 quid a year, and they're bringing they're bringing everybody down. You know what I mean? It could be, encompasses all sorts of authors who are writing books that won't sell, but they're writing them because they're maybe writing 3 or 4 duck books a year.
So you're saying my idea for the history of the mallard is not going to be a bestseller?
That's not going to fly, man. It's not going to fly. That's not going anywhere.
That was my idea for 2017. I thought that was that's where the publishing was going.
That's the next hot trend.
Here's another guy, Wayne Gretzky, who said be ahead of the game at all times, and that's what I was trying to stay ahead of the game, and that's what I was trying to go with that, and the mallard was never the way to go. Damn it.
You see, you need to hybridize it, so you need to duck crime fiction. Inspector Mallard.
Inspector Mallard.
Investigates. There's been a murder in the pond.
There's been a murder in the pond. It's the little island in the middle of the pond is where the murder weapon was buried.
Do you know what's scary though? When I was at BoucherCon, there's lots of there's serious amount of books about mystery set in puppy sort of retreats and cat homes, and where the cat investigates and solves the crime. There's a whole if you go into some bookshops, they have whole sections dedicated to cat mysteries, so you could be huge in America. You could be the duck guy.
This is how I crack America, the duck guy. See, I brought it back. It's coming back.
It's coming back.
Inspector Mallard's coming back, man. Lastly, we have news of Super Thursday, which this year falls on the 20th of October. This is traditionally the time the publishers release the books that they think are going to be the biggest sellers running into the Christmas season. Do you want to know what the two biggest names are this year?
Go on.
Well, according to The Guardian at least, it's those bastions of taste and glamour, Jamie Oliver and Phil Collins.
Oh, right. Well, in fairness, I don't mind Jamie Oliver. A lot of people don't like him. I don't mind him. He's perfectly innocuous sort of a fella.
He's never bothered me. He's never come to my house and knocked anything over. He's fine.
yeah. I know he does a wee bit of preaching occasionally, but his sort of heart's in the right place, and I don't mind him at all. And my wife quite likes him. She likes sort of the occasional Jamie book. So that's fine. Phil Collins, is that? I take it that's not a Phil Collins cookery book. It's like a biography.
I need to check, because if it is, then I might buy it. But, no, I think it's probably going to be another musical autobiography. I think they all should have stopped as soon as Bruce Springsteen brings out his. It's like, you know what? We'll for a couple of years, let's not bring anything out, because this is obviously going to be better than all of ours.
That will dominate. That will dominate. I think that Springsteen book is going to dominate. I think.
I mean, the other novels in the mix. There's a Guy Martin. His book's called Worms to Catch. Guy Martin is the. I saw him doing like a drag show or something, but so I don't know where.
I have no idea who this man is at all.
I think he did some driving show on Channel 4 on like a Sunday night. It's something like like a Need for Speed type of thing. It's like it seemed like a cozier version of Top Gear. Barely any racism at all. So I don't quite understand. I don't know what he is. I don't know what he does.
What's his book called?
Worms to Catch.
Is that not Volume 1 of the Inspector Mallard series?
I think it's.
He's got there before you.
Do you reckon?
I thought he's one of those survival guys. Is he? Was he one of those guys that drink their own pee?
The only one I know is Bear Grylls.
Yeah, but he's kind of cool. I kind of like Bear Grylls.
I've never watched any of his stuff. I don't really tend to tune in when someone says, "You should watch this." He drinks his own piss. It's not something that it usually sells to me, really.
But he does other stuff too.
I'm sure he does.
Climbing and running through trees and doing stuff. I quite like him.
See, this is my problem, right? Is that that's all well and good, but I won't even go camping. I'm like, listen, I've got to the point now where I can book a hotel, and there's loads of them about. I don't need to sit in a tent all night. It's like. The idea of this survivalist mode of I'm going to go back to the wild and I'm going to catch a haddock with my toe. I don't really get into all of that, so I'm very much I've lost all Neanderthal about me. I think I'm kind of there's nothing about me other than don't look at me. It's like if you look at me, I'll hit you over the head with a club. It's like that's the only Neanderthal about me. It's like. But the idea of killing I'm like, I don't need to kill my own food. It comes in a packet in Asda. I don't need to worry about it anymore. So I never really got into that. It's like I don't really. There's been this show, hasn't there? A celebrity show I was watching Gogglebox or something, and they were watching it on that where they had to kill it looked like a crocodile, but it wasn't a crocodile. It was like a really small version of a crocodile, whatever they're called.
Really small? An alligator?
No,
No, I thought they were big.
Alligator that was like really small, and they had to kill it because they had to eat.
Right. Okay.
All you think of is like, these people have got a few quid. They could be shopping at Waitrose.
See, this is a thing. I think some of this is a class thing. I think people who were brought up very well in a very comfortable house, and never worried about money, and they lived in a lovely area. They have never had that. Oh, I've spent my bus fare on a pint. I'll have to sleep in the bus shelter type of thing, or that because we get all our survival experiences through everyday life. Because growing up in Belfast in the 80s, I could have been murdered at any point. Going to the shop, or I'm sure Liverpool had its moments as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you think you had a bad in Belfast. Oh God.
No, but I'm sure it did. Whereas other people haven't had that experience. So we don't need that fear. We've had that fear.
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right about that. I think that's a good theory. I think it's a solid theory. I think we should put that up there with evolution.
Yeah.
Another book is Nomad, which is by Steve Coogan's creation, Alan Partridge. We now have fictional characters writing books that will sell more than ours. Discovery.
Yes. Well, I think, I don't know. I'm sure I like Steve Coogan. I think he's really funny. I'm sure it will be really funny. So, I might even get that, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll give him a pass on that. I mean, the swimming pool segments in the day-to-day, what's his name? The guy who does the day-to-day.
Oh, Chris Morris.
Chris Morris. There's a
Have
you remember the swimming pool segment? In
No.
1978, no one died. That's brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
It's brilliant. I give him a pass for anything after that because that still makes me laugh to this day. We also have Alan Bennett's latest collection of prose, which is called "Keeping On, Keeping On." I don't know if he's got that must be the title because I have got this off a very well sourced place. I don't understand this keeping on. It's like this double. You've said it once. Why'd you have to say it twice?
Because he's Alan Bennett. He can get away with that shit. We can't, man.
So yeah, I don't know much about Alan Bennett other than I remember people taking doing impressions of him, but I don't really know. I haven't read anything of Alan Bennett.
Well, have you seen? Well, he wrote lots of plays. He was in the Footlights show with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and Jonathan. Oh, I can't remember Jonathan's second name. Dr. Jonathan something. Now, he's an amazing polymath, that guy. He's like a doctor of medicine and he's a scientist and artist and all sorts of stuff. But Alan Bennett's quite funny. He made a film. I think Michael Palin starred in it. I think Alan Bennett wrote the film, A Private Something with a pig in it. That was hilarious. I can't remember the name of it now, but that was really good. No, I quite like Alan Bennett. And there was a movie out recently with Maggie Smith, The Lady in the Van.
Oh, yes.
That's Alan Bennett.
Is that Alan Bennett, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, my wife went to see that.
It's okay. That might do quite well.
I'll have to watch that. And then in the fiction department, which is where we are interested in, we have Martina Cole's latest Betrayal.
Oh, very good.
Have you heard of Martina Cole?
I haven't actually, but my mum absolutely loved Martina Cole. And I know a lot of my friends do too. And I have a couple of her books. I've even bought a couple, but I just haven't got round to. I've got everyone loves her, and I thought, oh yeah, that'll be good. I'll read that.
There's a few in that kind of genre which do really good work without flying under the radar of our kind of community. It's like they sell ridiculous amounts. So they're obviously doing well somewhere, but it's so you don't really see them at crime fiction festivals and stuff like that. I've seen Martina Cole quite a few times lately. Kimberly Chambers is another one who writes very East End of London type of fiction, very much keeping of the craze era type of thing.
There's a big market for that, and
Martina Cole's really for everything I've heard about her is good.
I think I read. I think I actually think I read her first book. I can kind of remember the opening of it. There was a guy sort of in his shed. Her husband was in his shed doing horrible things and planning horrible things. And I remember being really creeped out by the opening of that. I think I did read her first book, although I can't now remember the name of it, because she's must be written 20 or 30 now, I'm sure. But no, I definitely have read of Martina Cole. Yeah, they're good.
And we also have the new, and this is the 24th Kay Scarpetta novel from Patricia Cornwell, which is Chaos. 24 books in a series. 24. We both write series.
Yeah.
Can you imagine getting to number 24?
No. I can't really imagine getting to 4. The Guardian article about Super Thursday had intrigued me about this thing. This Danish craze. Oh, yeah. And there's about 12 books coming out. And it's about this Danish way of living. I'm going to spell it. It's called, it's spelled Hygge. Have you looked up how to pronounce it?
No.
I have.
I don't really want. I didn't want to because.
Go on. Have a go.
My thinking is it's Danish.
Yeah.
Now I may have an Italian name. I may know many Italian swear words and not much else of the language. But that's where my language stops. I know Scouse and a few Italian swear words, and that's about it. So my knowledge of Danish isn't as best as it could be. So my thinking is that it's pronounced hike. Is that anywhere near it?
No. I thought it was going to be Hygge.
I mean, that's the initial reaction is that's what it's gonna sound like.
Yeah.
I was going for a more like I'm thinking like the Danish people, and I was trying to put myself in Denmark as I've come here. I'm gonna learn the language, and I was going for the. And it just it's not. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to Denmark, am I?
No, you're not going there, man.
Inspector Mallard's never going to sell over there.
He's not. No, it's not. That's not going there. That's not going there. But it's an incredible thing. It's like it sort of struck me. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's all very good, but there's no literal translation of this word. It's sort of meant to be like a way of living where you're sort of cozied up beside the fire with your mate and you've had a bottle of beer. Do you need a book to tell you that sometimes you should just sit in the house and put your feet up? I don't think, $16.99, please. I don't think it would. I'll tell you how it is pronounced, because I did look it up. It's pronounced Hygge. Hygge.
So far off.
I know, so was I. But here's the thing: there's about 12 of these books coming out, and I think this could be. I mean, I've not picked up one of these things. I've never even seen one. There's one called The Little Book of Hygge. But you're going to have lots of people reading The Guardian going, my missus would quite like that. That's quite a nice thing. And they're going into Waterstones or whatever and saying, do you have The Little Book of Hygge? And somebody going, what? Or you have The Little Book of Hygge. And there's people going to come, there'll be ladies opening parcels on Christmas morning with a book about Scandinavian hedges. What the hell's this? That's what that book you wanted, the hedges book. Just no. Was Hygge. So the publishers are relying on a word of mouth for this craze. The word in the title is one that nobody can say.
Okay, this week in Reviewers Corner we have Liz Barnsley of lizlovesbooks.com. She's a book reviewer, a book fanatic, a stalker of all things store-related. And she posts magnificent reviews. She's well loved within the crime community especially, but I know she reads across a wide variety of genres. So this week, Liz, what have you got for us first?
Right. Well, first of all, we have got Killing Kate by Alex Lake, which is something that I love, a serial killer thriller, but also a bit of a psychological thriller too. Basically, I liked it because of Kate, the character Kate, who suddenly realises that all these girls that are dying within her community, being killed by presumably the same guy, look exactly like her pretty much with her hairstyle and her, her general look, and suddenly decides that somebody's after her. And that's basically what the book is about. So we follow Kate while she changes her appearance and tries to decide whether her ex-boyfriend is perhaps a bit of a nut job. And it really is banging. It's fast, it's furious, and it's predictable as well, which I loved. So that's Killing Kate by Alex Lake, who also wrote the brilliant After Anna, incidentally. And if you haven't read that one, you might like to read that one as well.
See, I knew there was the name kind of rang a bell. So After Anna, I remember that one being out. I haven't read that one. I think I've got it on my ever-expanding shelves.
Well, After Anna is about a missing child, but in After Anna, the missing child comes back very early on in the book,
right,
which gave it a little bit of a difference about it. So it's more about what happened to her while she was away. So that was very good. And she's got another killer book with Killing Kate as well. Very good. One to watch, I think.
And when does that come out?
That is out now, I believe. Yes, that is out now from Killer Reads, HarperCollins. Definitely, yes, definitely on Kindle. I'm not sure about paperback.
Killer Reads is the imprint, isn't it? That's kind of.
It is. They always
like
start.
Avon, isn't it? It's like,
They do digital first, and then you get the paperback a little bit later on. I have a paperback, but then I'm special, so I'm not sure if it is out in paperback yet.
Excellent. Okay, and second up, what have we got?
Right, so the next one I've got for you is Someone is Watching by Joy Fielding. Now, that's not out just yet, but I loved this one because it's kind of a bit like Rear Window. Remember the film Rear Window with Alfred Hitchcock, which is one of my favourite movies ever. Yeah. In Someone is Watching, we've got a young lady who is rather brutally attacked, and so she becomes sort of trapped at home because she can't go out because she's suffering from post-traumatic stress. And she believes that there's somebody in the flat opposite her who is watching her and may possibly be coming after her. Now, the reason I like this one so much is because it's got some great characters in it, and it is very tense as well, because you're not sure whether she's actually going completely crazy, and it's just the fact that she's been, terribly hurt, and so she's seeing bad guys everywhere, or whether there is actually something going on over there. And I liked this one because it was very, very, very twisty. There were lots of twists and turns in this, and you never were quite sure what was going on. But it's also quite a sort of an emotional one, really, because it does look into the aftermath of rape and things like that, and how women react to that. And so you've got sort of a game of two halves, really. There, you've got the thriller aspect, and you've got the recovery aspect as she starts to come back to herself. So that one I would definitely highly recommend for both of its aspects, if you like. You're kind of getting a bit of crime and a bit of sort of drama as well, if you like. Yeah. So
what's that called again? Sorry, say that again.
That one is Someone is Watching, and the author is Joy Fielding. You're going to have to wait a little bit for that one because it's beginning of December.
That sounds great, that one.
That sounds really good, that one.
Yes, it is very good, and it's very well written to be very sort of. It's a huge page turner. I read it basically in one go. Wow. Took me a couple of hours. Might take other people a bit longer, but yeah, I went through it in a couple of hours.
Are you one of those speed readers?
Oh, I don't know. I just read fast. I suppose the answer is yes. Then yes, I am. But I don't skim read. That's what people ask me. They say, "Do you skim read?" No, I don't skim read. But a lifetime of reading has made me quick, I think.
So I'm going to ask a question now, and I think I know the answer. But which book do you think will be a big book of 2017? Oh
my word! Do you know what? I've seen a few. And I really couldn't pick it, but the one I would say for early in the year is probably going to be Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Kimbrough.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the one that has been all over the internet talking about the ending of it, which is basically all they're talking about is not giving away the ending, and the ending is this huge sort of a twist you'll never see coming in all your life. And actually, for once, because normally when they say that about books, I'm like, I get it within a few pages and I get really quite annoyed by it. But no, yeah, she's evil. She is evil. Sarah Pimber is an evil genius, and I didn't see it coming. And I think anybody that says they did are probably just wanting to be the cleverest person.
Yeah. I thought it was a fantastic book. It's one of the only times that I've kind of shamelessly tracked down a publicist to find the copy of the book. Was there?
Okay, well, there's a little secret there that I can tell you. I did literally steal my proof because I was at Harrogate this year, and I was at a HarperCollins thing, and they just had like one or two sat on the side, and they weren't really meant to go anywhere, but one did come away with me in my bag.
I'm sure they'll be fine about it.
Oh no, it's actually it is fine. Yes, I'm sure.
I had the opposite thing. Sarah and I had the same American publisher.
All right.
And they sent me a proof, and I thought, oh God, I must read that. That's great. That'll be on the listing for next. And then I couldn't find it, and it turns out my mother-in-law was in the house and thought, oh, that looks good, and just lifted it. But she's given it back to me now. She read it and absolutely loved it. So I'm reading it at the moment, and it is fantastic.
It's very difficult to talk about, isn't it, without giving
away? No, you mustn't say anything about it. I mean, I would really prefer that they didn't say, not even generally what it's about, because you've just got it. It is a thriller. And yes, it has got a huge twist in the tail. And no, I don't believe you if you say that you saw it coming.
I don't believe anyone who says that they got the twist in that book at
all. No, I just don't believe it at all.
Okay, and one that's going under the radar somewhat, maybe, and but you still think is going to be one of the reads of the next few months. Do you think?
Well, it's interesting actually, because I've got one that I have just finished, and hold on, I will find it. And I don't think it's going to go under the radar, but I think it's definitely one that's going to be talked about an awful lot. And that is called The Roanoke Girls, which is coming out actually in March of next year. And it has a very, very, very dark emotional subject at the heart of it. And it's what is the secret of the Roanoke Girls? All the Roanoke Girls either die or they leave. So that is the tagline: all the Roanoke Girls leave or they die. And awful, I think, basically because of the subject matter, which obviously I can't give away. Because if I do, then I've given it away. But it was one that completely threw me. I didn't read anything. I haven't read anything today, having finished that.
Excellent. I like the sound of that a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just wrap this up. It's Killing Kate by Alex Lake.
Yes.
Someone is Watching by Joy Fielding.
That's
They're your two for the week, and also we've had a bit of a discussion about Sarah Pimber, and I think we'll probably talk about her again in the next couple of months.
I think we'll probably talk about her a fair bit, especially after the book's out and everybody's wanting to talk about that.
I think we'll get Sarah on.
Oh, definitely.
Please do get Sarah on so I can, tell her off for actually getting me, because not many people do.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Liz, and we'll see you soon.
See you again soon.
Thanks, Liz.
This week we're joined by the one and only Mr. Ian Rankin, author of, by my count, now this might be wrong, I've got 26 novels, numerous short story collections, and also includes 20 in the Rebus series. Ian is one of the most beloved and admired crime writers in the UK. His new book, Rather Be the Devil, is out now and marks the 21st novel in the Rebus series. Welcome to Two Crime Writers and a Microphone, Ian.
Thanks.
As you already know, my co-host, Steve Cavanagh, is unavailable at the moment we're recording, as he is taking in a Status Quo gig. Is this the first time you've ever been turned down for the Quo?
Yeah, this is probably the first and only time I'll be turned down for the Quo. This has to be their farewell tour, surely.
I think this is the 22nd farewell tour. They
never
be
doing farewell tour. That's what it is. Anyway, no, I'm with them. When I was 12, 13, 14, I was a big fan of Status Quo, so I would probably, given the choice, be watching Status Quo as well. No disrespect to you, young Luca.
I mean, we're coming up on the 30th anniversary of Rebus, so I mean, this is this is also a very long-standing thing, as well as the Rebus series. Notts and Crosses came out in 1987, was it?
Yeah, 87 was the first Rebus novel. Yeah.
87. You never sat down to write a crime novel, did you? When you sat down and wrote that book?
I think I've often said that, and that's now a standard response. But I'm pretty sure I knew I was writing a crime novel, really, because I'd read Willie McIlvanney, I'd read Laidlaw, and I remember going up to him at the book festival in Edinburgh in 1985 and saying, "Look, I've written a book, or I'm writing a book that's a little bit like Laidlaw but set in Edinburgh." And he actually wrote in my book, "Good luck with the Edinburgh Laidlaw." So obviously I knew I was writing a novel about a detective that could be considered a crime book. But because McIlvanney was the only crime writer I read, and he was actually a literary author, I thought my books were literary as well. I didn't see any difference between literary fiction and crime fiction.
Is that still the case, though? Do you think that there's no real genre-specific kind of thing going in your book?
I guess they are a genre, and thank God it's a very popular genre, and we're all pleased about that. Lots of people go out and buy the books. We tend to sell more books than literary authors. But on the other hand, I think crime writers, and I think it's especially true these days, there's a lot of young crime writers out there who write books of real quality. I mean, moral depth and well-written, poetic, and all the rest of it. They are literary fiction. They are as literary as any other literary novel, but they just happen to have a really cracking plot as well, which a lot of literary fiction doesn't have. It's a bit plot light sometimes, and that's the one thing you can't accuse crime fiction of being, is plot light.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Especially with a series character like yours, is that character is of utmost importance, along with plot. Is Rebus as a character? I mean, is that something that was of most interest to you as the series progressed, or was that something that was of interest when you first started?
No, I mean, when I wrote the first one, I thought the first one was going to be the only one, and so I gave him this quite convoluted backstory, which then, pain in the arse, I had to take on board for the rest of the books. I couldn't forget stuff like he's afraid of flying. Why is he afraid of flying? All right, because he's SAS training, blah, blah, blah. His brother's a dodgy character who ended up in jail. Once I'd done that, I couldn't. But he was useful to me as a character, and he continues to be useful as a character, and that's why I keep writing about him, is that I like spending time with him. And the more time I spend with him, the more I get to know about him. But of course, between books, he ages a bit. And so the Rebus I come to in the new book is a different person from this I wrote about previously, because he's got a bit older, possibly a bit less healthy. The new book, he's got some quite serious health issues, thanks to my wife, who said his luck's got to run out soon, surely.
Yeah.
So he's changed. He's evolved. He's evolved, as has Edinburgh, as has Scotland.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Is with the long-running series, is that it has to evolve. I imagine is that it has to keep moving forward. Otherwise, people would just get, it's the same every time. I think that's.
What do you think we would? I don't know, man. We keep having a dig at her, but look at Miss Marple. Look at Agatha Christie. I mean, her main characters, the detectives, didn't really change much between books. They weren't changed by the crimes that they investigated. And yet they're hugely popular because people love that kind of story, that kind of puzzle. And she's all across the world. She's probably selling more books than any of us still. But, that's not what interests me. If somebody said to me, on page 1, I worked out who did it and why, I'd go, great. Did you enjoy the rest of the book? Because to me, crime fiction's got to be about more than just that puzzle. It's got to be about, it's got to be a kind of a moral core to it. There's got to be a kind of investigation of society, which is what the detective can do so well, is look at society from top to bottom. And that's what really interests me. And also the sense of place, the kind of idea that I want to know about any place in the world, whether it's Liverpool, Belfast, Dublin, New York, LA, India, China. If I want to know about that culture, that place, I'll go straight to the crime fiction, because that's where I'm going to get the best kind of guide.
I agree with that. I mean, I think society and the way where you live always has an effect on what the writer is writing about as well. Is that, I know Liverpool has a massive effect on what I write. And I imagine the same is. But I think you didn't grow up in Edinburgh, did you?
I grew up about 20 miles north, but there was a big chunk of water between me and Edinburgh called the Firth of Forth. And so I didn't go to Edinburgh very much until I was in my kind of mid-teens. And then Saturday, a bunch of us from high school would maybe nip across on the train and do some record shopping and try and get served in bars, even though we were underage. But it was only when I arrived in Edinburgh as a student, so I was 18. In fact, October 78 I arrived, which is why in the new book the crime takes place in October 78, because it was kind of, I've got very vivid memories of Edinburgh at that time, because I was arriving in this big complex city. And immediately, to make sense of it, I started to A, walk through the city, and B, go back to my student digs and write about it. So I started writing stories about Edinburgh and anecdotes about Edinburgh to make sense of the place.
Do you know what? I think the main thing for me about your career, which has always kind of given me hope, and I think gives a lot of other people writing series hope, is that was it the 8th in the series before it really took off to the level where it's gone to now? The Black and Blue, was it?
Well, I mean, it was even after that. I mean, Black and Blue was a breakthrough book in that it won the Gold Dagger for the best crime novel published that year, and it ended up selling 4 times as many copies as any of my previous books. But it still didn't break the top 10. I mean, it was the book after that, or even the book after that, before I started to scrape into the UK top 10. And in fact, in the States, in America, I only started hitting the New York Times bestseller list 3 books ago. So it was like Rebus novel number 18 was my first time appearing on the New York Times bestseller list. So there's a lesson there, which is just don't give up.
That's incredible. I'll tell you what I'm really interested in, though, because the first time I noticed it was with Exit Music. Now, that's because I was a Radiohead fan, and I'm still kind of a Radiohead fan now, but it was the first time I've noticed that music having a major influence, because it was like, I know that's from that Radiohead song. That's got to be from that Radiohead song.
I'd been doing it for years. You just hadn't noticed it.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I take very little notice of titles. That was because it was the first. I love that song. You see, I love it a lot.
Yeah, you know, the other thing is you're mistaken. It isn't named after the Radiohead song.
No way.
Yeah, it's actually named after an album by a Scottish musician called Stephen Lindsay, and he did an album called Exit Music. So everybody says, "Oh, it's Exit Music from a film," and I go, "No, it's not. It's Exit Music, an album by a Scottish musician."
That's not good. You've just ruined that for me now.
Sorry. So Luca Veste, ex-fan of Ian Rankin.
Yes.
Good night.
I mean, how much of an influence does music have, though? I mean, I know it. Do you listen to music when you write, for example?
Yeah, I listen to instrumental music. I listen to music when I'm writing, but it's a kind of little bubble. It's playing very softly in the background, and it just creates a little bubble where the real world disappears. And I've got certain totemic albums, CDs that I'll listen to while I'm writing, and it's usually electronica or jazz. So there could be some Coleman Hawkins from the jazz spectrum, or maybe some Dave Brubeck or something. And electronica, Brian Eno, Boards of Canada, Aphex Twin, Tangerine Dream. There's a lot of these albums, and I'll just say, I mean, I can put on Tangerine Dream. There's one album there, it's called Ricochet. It's exactly 41 minutes long, and I'll just stick it on repeat and listen to it for 8 hours straight, because I'm not really listening to it. It's just background noise that's kind of getting me into a headspace where I can get into Rebus's world.
I mean, and Rebus's musical taste, though, is very different, because Rebus's musical taste actually kind of mirrors mine in a way, because like you just named a load of bands that I'd heard of. Aphex Twin. That was about it. I'm sorry, but his taste kind of matched mine a little bit more. I mean, was it always the case that his
yeah, well,
he's different?
I think Rebus hasn't bought an album, hasn't bought an artist from about 1975.
Yeah.
So I don't know when you were born, Luca. But
I mean, I was born.
But no, I mean,
83.
his taste. It's kind of, I mean, he's a good 10 years older than me, and so I always have to bear in mind that the stuff he would have grown up listening to isn't the stuff I grew up listening to. So he would have grown up with the kind of early Stones and the Who and the Beatles, and he became a Stones and a Who fan fairly early on. And then, yeah, it was kind of bluesy rock was his métier. So people like Rory Gallagher, and he'd have been listening to a lot of those kind of heavy bands in the 70s. Probably a bit Status Quo, to be honest with you. He probably would have listened to the early Quo. But then he kind of, he doesn't listen to new music. So I've always got to be very conscious in the books. I mean, the last few books have been named after. Well, I mean, one was a song by the Associates, Even Dogs in the Wild. Well, Rebus would not listen to the Associates. Previous titles like Dead Souls, which is a Joy Division song, or The Hanging Garden, which is a song by The Cure. That's not Rebus's taste, that's my taste. So I've got to be very careful that the music he's listening to, I mean, this one's okay, the new one's okay, because it's a song by John Martin. The only problem with it is that if you read the lyrics before you read the book, it gives away a plot point. So I would say please don't look too closely at the lyrics of that song before you read the novel.
I mean, that's probably the weirdest author's note to appear at the beginning of a book, I reckon. Don't listen to this song before. Now, I've got a few questions that Steve has asked me to ask you. I don't think I should be forced to do this, really, because if he wants to go and watch Status Quo instead of talking to you, then I shouldn't be forced to ask you questions that he's asked. But I will do, because I like him. But so here's the first question. It says, If Luca and me could kidnap the Scandinavian actor from the bridge that Ian thinks looks like Rebus, teach him Scottish, and force him to make a Rebus series, would you watch it?
Yeah, he's got that mixed up, actually. It's the French actor from Spiral, Engrenage, the guy who plays Gilou, and I can't even remember the actor's name, but I think physically, I mean, he's a kind of slightly younger Rebus a few years ago, or when Rebus was a bit younger. Yeah, I mean, I've actually got a plan to kidnap that actor, put him in the boot of the car, take him back to Edinburgh, and force feed him Scottish culture until he can do a passable Scottish accent. And then, yes, I probably would watch it.
I mean, you've not watched any of the series, have you?
I've not watched it because I didn't want actors' voices. No, I don't. I mean, I just don't. I didn't want actors' voices and faces and mannerisms to get in the way of my character. Because before Rebus went on TV, when it was originally with John Hannah, I did contact a few writers whose work had been televised, and they all said, look, it will change the way you write about your character. I mean, Colin Dexter definitely said that. He said it will change the way you write about your character. And Val McDermott, I think, said the same thing. And I thought, well, I don't want that. I mean, I've been around Rebus now for 9 or 10 books. I don't want him to change to be like an actor. So that's why I made a decision not to get involved, never to read a script, never to watch it. And I've stayed pretty true to that.
His second question is, what is Ian's favourite beer at the moment?
Favourite beer at the moment? The probably Happy Chappy, which is from Cromarty Brewing. It's a tiny brewery way up in the north of Scotland past Inverness. And I go up there to write. I go up there to do a lot of writing because there's no mobile phone signal up there, and I don't have a TV. They've got a house up there but no TV. So I nip into the local bar every night. I haven't had a good day's work. Have a couple of pints of Happy Chappy and fish and chips. And then I'm just set up for the next day. Reported days and you've got a first draft, but you're about 3.5 stone overweight.
I do have like my own little drink shelf in my office with the various whiskies, and I kind of just reward myself after every certain point of the novel. It's like, you can have a little bit of that now. And his final question, it's the question that everyone wants to know the answer to. It's, what is Ian's favourite Status Quo song?
He's really asking me that, is he?
He's really putting that down.
Probably, I think it's 4,500 times. I think it's 4,500 times. It's on the Hello album, which is quite an early Quo album. I don't know. I mean, you know, Caroline's a great song. Down Down's a great song. But 4,500 times is a long one. It's about 8-9 minutes. It's just a kind of boogie, a boogie riff that refuses to die. So it's a bit like Rebus, and probably he would listen to it as well on repeat.
That's excellent. So it's. I think by the time this is out, the book will be released. Is this is the
and
21?
Doing another comeback gig.
Yeah, and Status Quo will be scheduling their new tour. I'm sure one of the Status Quo guys isn't actually on tour with them at the moment either. Is it Rick Parfitt? Is not.
He's not well, is he?
He's not well. He wasn't well, was he? So you're not even getting the full Quo. He's ditched you for half a Quo. That's not right.
It's literally not the status quo. It's changed.
That's all it is. But it's the 21st Rebus novel. Now you'll probably be asked a lot on this. So I mean, is it? I don't think it'll be the last one. I imagine it's probably not going to be the last one, is it?
Well, the plan is to take a year off next year and kind of celebrate 30 years of Rebus by going away and doing tours and festivals and things. So I've got no plans to write one next year, but I've got a teeny tiny beginning of a plot sitting at the back of my head for one more. And as long as there's one more in the works, that's fine.
Just keep going. Well, I'm excited to read it, and I'm excited to see you in Liverpool on the 29th of November.
Yeah, have you picked a good bar, Luca? A good bar to go to?
I've got many bars that we'll be going to. Don't worry about that.
I'd like to hear it.
Have you been to Liverpool before?
Yeah, but not for a while. The last time I was there was to go to the Everyman Theatre.
Yeah.
I went there to see King Lear many years ago with Pete Postlethwaite. I think that might have been the last time I was in Liverpool. So it was a few years ago now, and in fact, I think they've changed the theatre since then. They've knocked it down and rebuilt it.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm looking forward to getting back there. It'll be the Fab 2 on stage.
Can't wait for that. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ian, and we'll speak to you soon.
All right, Luca, take care, man. Bye now.
Very much. Bye now. So that just about wraps up things for this week. But before we go, we're going to talk about a couple of books that have caught our eye recently, and maybe even a series or two. Steve, do you want to go first?
Yes. There's a Northern Ireland writer called Adrian McKenty, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Of course.
We will have heard of him. I wanted to recommend, because I recommend to everyone, Adrian's Sean Duffy series. It's about a Catholic RUC officer who's working in the Protestant RUC police force in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. It is a fantastic series. There are currently 5 books in the series. I read Rain Dogs recently. That's the latest book in the series, and it was my book of the year. It was absolutely stunning. I'm just having a wee look. The first book was The Cold, Cold Grind. Wait to hear this. Now, that came out 2012, I think it was. It won the Spine Tingle Award for Best Crime Novel. Shortlisted for 2 Prix de Polar awards in France. Shortlisted for Crime Fest Last Laugh Awards. So that's what? 1 nominated for another 3. I Hear the Sirens in the Street won the Barry Award for Best Mystery Novel. Shortlisted for the Ned Kelly Award. Another French crime nomination, and nominated for Thief and Soul Peculiar. In the Morning I'll Be Gone won Ned Kelly Award for the Best Australian Crime Novel. Adrian lives in Australia. Shortlisted for Naughty Award. Named as one of the best crime novels of 2014 by the American Library Association. Gun Street Girl, the 4th one. Shortlisted for an Edgar. Ned Kelly, Anthony, Audie. Boston Globe Best Book of 2015. Rain Dog shortlisted for Thief and Soul Peculiar Crime Novel of the Year, Ned Kelly Award, and the Ian Fleming Steel Dagger. That's, from my count, 21 international award nominations, and won a few over the first 5 books in the series. If you can name me any other series that has that kind of international recognition from the great and the good, I mean, there's a lawyer I work with, and I finished Rain Dogs. I gave her a copy. She says, read that, you'll love that. And she was in court for a while in the trial. I didn't see her. She came back in to see me the other week. I said, did you read that? She said, oh, yes. And I went out and bought the other 4 and read them too. So if you want a really good police procedural that's really well written, go and get Adrian McKinty's Sean Duffy series. The 5th one is out, I think, in the new year. And I think it's called The Police Are at the Station and They're Not Happy. Something like that. They're all the titles are from Tom Waits songs.
That is super.
So they're brilliant. So yeah, police at the station and they don't look friendly. That's the title. So go and get an Adrian McKinty book. What are you going to talk about? What are you fancying?
Well, I've just finished Megan Abbott's latest book, which is called You Will Know Me. I'm a massive Megan Abbott fan.
She's brilliant.
She's fantastic. I think the first one I read of hers, I haven't read the earlier pulpy kind of novels she wrote. I've read the more teeny kind of not teen fiction as per se. It's about teenage life more than anything.
Yeah.
But I read The End of Everything and was just blown away, and I've kind of followed her ever since. And I've read The Fever earlier in the year, which is just superb. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And but You Will Know Me is much. It's almost so insidious. It's like you don't even realise you creep the hell out until you're like halfway through the book and you're thinking, oh no, this is not good. But she manages to capture voices better than anyone I know. She has this way of like the youngest character to the oldest character. You're living inside their heads, and it's just an incredible piece of writing every single time. I imagine that she's got many awards. I haven't looked it up, and nominations, I'm sure.
Oh, she has. She won a few, absolutely.
And they're all well deserved because she is an incredible writer. I think she's becoming more well known over here, but I know she's very well known over in the States now. I also think she's got a couple of series in production as well, which is no surprise because some of the work that she's created over the last few years has just been astounding. I think it's published by Picador over here. I know she's had a couple. I don't know if she's had a couple of different publishers, but I certainly know You Will Know Me is published by Picador, and it is absolutely superb. If you enjoy a real character-based read, Megan Abbott is one for you.
Brilliant. A lot of her books have a really good hook. Was Fever the one about the the cheerleaders or the children in the school just suddenly dropping down suspiciously is brilliant hook.
It's kind of based on a real life event, I think. It's like a mass psychosis type of angle where it's, one child falls ill and then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of children fall ill at the same time. And because it's teenage girls, she kind of delves into the relationships that happen between teenage girls, and in a very interesting and original manner. And I think the cheerleader one that you're thinking of, I think is called Dare Me.
Dare Me, that's right.
And that was that put me off cheerleaders for life, and I didn't think. But it's just she has a way of capturing just that kind of those moments that mean nothing really to a lot of other writers, but to her, she kind of will capture it, and you think, Christ, how has she done that? How has she picked that moment out and made it into something? It's just superb. She's an incredible writer, someone I just greatly admire, and I don't think I need to help her get any more readers, but if I can, I will indeed.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So that'll do it for this week. We've had some amazing guests on. We had Liz doing our reviews, and we had the one and only Mr. Ian Rankin, which was unbelievable. I should just point out that Ian Rankin is touring the UK with his new book, and he'll be appearing in a number of places. He's in Norwich on the 10th of November. He's in Glasgow on the 12th of November. He's in Manchester on the 30th of November. One of his big events, though, obviously, will be the one he does in Liverpool on the 29th of November, where a small, relatively little-known author called Luca Veste will be interviewing him.
Who's he?
I don't know. He's never going to get anywhere with a name like that, I'll tell you that. He's in Belfast on the 9th of December, and he's
at the infamous No Alibi bookshop.
Is that No Alibis?
Yeah.
Best bookshop in Belfast, best bookshop in Northern Ireland, best bookshop around. I love it. I had the great honour of appearing there last year with some author I can't remember the name of now. Oh, it was you. It was you.
Oh, yeah, it's me. That's me. That other guy's not getting anywhere.
You can find out more information at ianrankin.net, as I'm sure you'll be aware, and he is on Twitter at BeathHigh, is it? BeathHigh?
BeathHigh.
BeathHigh. I never
That's
understood that
one.
one.
That's the name of his
got Ian at Ian Rankin?
That's the name of his old school, Beath High School.
Is that just?
I think.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
By this point, he could just get at Ian Rankin. He could just argue with whoever's got. I wonder who's got it. Who's got at Ian Rankin?
I don't know. Probably some physicist or cartoon person. I don't know. No idea.
Called Ian Rankin, probably.
Somebody called Ian Rankin.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a fantastic deduction.
Next week we'll be speaking to Stuart Neville about all things music related, I imagine, but we'll also be talking to him about his new adventure, which is coming next year, which I'm sure he'll be very interested to talk about. So that's it from this week. That's it from me. I'm Luca Veste.
I'm Steve Cavanagh, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 2 Crime Writers, like our Facebook page, and subscribe to this podcast.
Excellent. We'll see you next week.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.